Welcome to I'm Too Busy, an interview-based show hosted by a talented makeup artist, Christina Flach. Christina offers viewers a unique blend of personal stories, inspiring journeys, and practical beauty tips. Join the conversation as Christina features successful individuals from various industries who share their insights on health, wellness, makeup, and the keys to their success. So now, please welcome the host of I'm Too Busy, Christina Flach.
Hi, welcome to I'm Too Busy. I'm Christina Flach, and today I am so honored to have a legendary figure in the sports industry whose career has spanned over 4 decades, whose influence has shaped modern sports representation. Leigh Steinberg is widely regarded as a premier sports agent in the industry and the real-life inspiration behind the Oscar-winning film Jerry Maguire. With an unparalleled career representing elite athletes across multiple sports, Leigh has transformed how athletes build their personal brands and leverage their influence both on and off the field. I would like to welcome you, Leigh Steinberg. Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure.
So let's just dive into this. You went to Berkeley. You got your first client at age 25. How did that happen?
So, Christina, I went to Berkeley at the time that was unique in campus history. And I ended up student body president at the same time that the governor was Ronald Reagan, who became president. And I learned everything I needed to learn about negotiating from interacting with him. I was a dorm counselor in an undergraduate dorm working my way through law school. And they put the freshman football team into the dorm, and one of the students was the quarterback, Steve Bartkowski, and he ended up being the very first pick in the first round of the 1975 NFL draft. And he asked me to represent him. I was at a law school choosing between different jobs, and there I was, brimming with legal experience. And I had the first pick in the first round of the draft, and we got the largest rookie contract in NFL history. Now, there wasn't much of a field of sports representation then. Teams could simply slam down the phone and say, we don't deal with agents. So there was no guaranteed right at that point. But I was looking, my dad had these 2 core values. One was treasure relationships, especially family. And the second was try to make a meaningful difference in a positive way in the world and help people who couldn't help themselves. So I was looking for a profession to do that in. And in that first experience, I saw the tremendous idol worship and veneration athletes were held in communities across the country, how they were the movie stars, how they were the celebrities. And I thought, well, if I could get them to embrace the concept of being a role model and retrace their roots to the high school, collegiate, and professional community, set up a high school scholarship fund, deal with university payback program, set up a charitable foundation that had the leading business figures, political figures, and community leaders on a board, they could execute a program. So work done, just put the 200th single mother and their family in the first home they'll ever own. So that was when it began back in 1975.
Wow, that's remarkable. All of your athletes that you represent all have foundations. Is that something that you encourage them all to do, or do you expect them to do?
So I spoke with them all up front, and I used to profile athletes that I thought were good fits for this. I wanted to work with athletes who would, again, retrace their roots. So yes, all of the athletes in their own time, in their own way. I think they've raised in aggregate about $1.5 billion in proceeds, but more importantly, understood the power of role modeling. So when I had the heavyweight champion of the world in boxing, Lennox Lewis, cut a public service announcement that said, "Real men don't hit women." And that could do more to trigger behavioral change in rebellious adolescents than 1,000 authority figures ever could.
How accurate was the portrayal of the sports agent world in Jerry Maguire? And what was your involvement in the film?
Well, Cameron Crowe, the writer-director, called me up back in 1993 and asked if he could follow me around and be immersed in my world to do a film that would be predicated on the lead character being a sports agent. So I had seen a movie that he wrote the book for called Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And
I remember that well.
So I thought it was hilarious, so I thought it might be fun. So I said, sure. And he came to the 1993 NFL draft with me where I had the first pick, and to the press conference up in Boston. He came to the league meetings with me in Palm Desert. He came to a series of games. He came to Pro Scouting Day at USC. Came to my Super Bowl party, spent hours in my office, and I told him stories, lots and lots of stories. So, and then my role was to be technical advisor, and so I vet the script to make sure the willing suspension of disbelief that holds you in a motion picture where you don't think that the dialogue might be unrealistic or look phony didn't get broken. And then he signed me the actors, so I took a young actor named Cuba Gooding Jr., who played the wide receiver in the film, down to the Super Bowl in Arizona, and I made him pretend he was a wide receiver client of mine for the week to put him in role. And I even had to show the quarterback, played by Jerry O'Connell, how to throw a spiral because he had gone to NYU and they didn't have football there.
Oh my God, that's remarkable. How much time did you spend, if any, with Tom Cruise?
A fair amount of time. I was on the set for different scenes, whether it was a draft or a scene they shot in the apartment. And so I was trying to give the actors motivation for what might be in their head and how an agent would look at the world.
Right. And 1993, as you mentioned, was a big year because that was the first year of free agency, correct?
It was, and Drew Bledsoe was the top pick that year. So we were able to innovate a concept called voidable years, which frustrated the new salary cap.
Do you believe in win-win negotiation?
So I wrote a book called Winning with Integrity, which was how to get what you want without losing your soul. So look, the key skill in life is listening. And it's trying to peel back the layers of the onion so you go deeper and deeper so you understand someone's deepest anxieties and fears and what their greatest hopes and dreams are. And if you can put yourself in the heart and mind of another human being and see the world the way they do it, then you can craft a paradigm that will lead you to win-win negotiating. But you've got to be completely aware of what the other side needs out of a situation and try to craft win-win.
Do you script or rehearse your verbal exchanges, or are you more off the cuff, face-to-face or phone or in writing when you're negotiating?
Well, I think that every word out of your mouth has to have intention. And in a negotiating session, if there's silence, you have to learn to live with it instead of babbling out a whole series of points. But what I do have to do, Christina, is bleed emotion out of the moment so that this is not about me. It's not my ego. I'm not going to get angry or upset by something that someone says. You're more or less in a warrior mode where you have no emotion to it. Everything is tactical.
Who is the most formidable negotiator that you've squared off against?
oh my God, there was the Cincinnati Bengals, and there was a owner and GM named Mike Brown, and I had their first round draft pick in 1987, 1992, 1994, 1995, 1999. He didn't much care for agents. I felt like if I represented astronauts, this Mike Brown would be like commissioner of the moon. And the problem was that, he did not believe in win-win negotiating. And so I think nature's way of teaching me humility was to keep having clients drafted there.
Who is the most responsible for shaping the current sports representation business besides you? Who are the major players, and where would you place yourself in that line?
So what happened is a whole series of multinational agencies, mostly involved in entertainment, decided they wanted to be involved in sports, and they went and bought up a series of individual agencies. And their real interest was not so much the money they'd get from that, but the ability to market and brand the athletes and to own content supply, motion pictures, television shows, reality shows, and to combine them all into entities they could own. So that's like CAA, it's William Morris Endeavor, it's Casey Wasserman, people like that.
So when you're negotiating, is it hard? Which sport is the hardest to negotiate, if any, or is it all kind of the same? I mean, you have MLB, you have NBA, NFL, you have boxing, golf, tennis. I mean, what's different about it and what's the same?
Well, in individual sports that you mentioned, golf and tennis, the negotiation is not for the fee or prize a athlete will get. It's for marketing. It's for endorsements. In
Right.
team sports, the NBA and Major League Baseball are significantly easier than pro football because
Why is that?
because you have a salary cap in the draft, which basically predetermines what every football player is going to receive. So the negotiability has been taken out of it. With veterans, there's a little more leverage, but again, the salary cap plays a role. Free agency in football is still a very lively process. The NBA has the same cap on draftees, but after that, if a player makes it, the pay is extraordinary. And baseball free agency is a amazing process where a 270 hitter gets hundreds of millions of dollars because they're available.
I know, it's unbelievable. It's remarkable that the average career span in the NFL is 3.3 years. Does that factor in when you're negotiating for these guys? Because you want to set them up for success later on in life, or do you even think about that?
Not really, because the 3.3 years comes from hundreds of players who only last a year or two.
Right.
Once a player makes it, Warren Moon was my client and played pro football for 23 years, or someone like Bruce Smith for 19 years. So the really good players, hyper talented players, unless injury plays a factor, tend to play a long time.
You've had great success with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it's so exciting, his career. How long have you had him as a client?
Since he was a college junior at Texas Tech.
Oh my gosh, that's remarkable. And so how often do you negotiate contract with someone like at the level of Patrick?
Well, since I consider him to be the best player in the NFL, not often. But what you have is a construct where the most valuable thing now in pro football with the NFL is a franchise quarterback. And it's so essential to have a player you can build around for 10 to 12 years who you can win because of rather than with, and who importantly in critical situations, adversity, throwing a couple interceptions, crowd is booing, and what does he do then? Can he compartmentalize, adopt a quiet mind, and elevate his level of play? That group is the most valuable position in pro football, and their salaries are exploding.
So you're known for having representing a lot of quarterbacks. Why is that?
Well, the quarterback, first of all, if you believe in role modeling, has the highest profile, so they can be a terrific role model. Secondarily, the game is sort of televised around them, and the endorsement market for quarterbacks is much higher. Lastly, they play a long time and they're paid at the top of the pay scale. So for all those reasons, and when you go to a game to watch, your player is center stage. So for all those reasons, there were weekends back in the 90s where I was representing half the starting quarterback.
That's incredible. We are going to take our first commercial break. I am Christina Flach, and we are chatting with Leigh Steinberg, and we will be right back.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to I'm Too Busy. I'm Christina Flach, and we are speaking with Leigh Steinberg about all things sports. Leigh, give me your top 5. I can't believe we got this deal done. If you can share them. You don't have to give names because I know that stuff's private, but are there a few that you can share?
Well, when Warren Moon came back to the NFL, from Canada, he was a total free agent, and he ended up getting the largest contract for a veteran ever. That same year, Steve Young came out of BYU, and there was a new football league, the USFL, that had the LA Express as one of their teams. And he signed a $42 million contract, which made headlines around the world. As a matter of fact, someone sent a Japanese newspaper, and all I could see was 42, and the rest of it was in Japanese. So that was a consequential contract. Obviously, Mahomes was was a breakthrough contract in its time. But back in the day, Troy Aikman's contracts made news and they made history. And then at one point, I negotiated the biggest fight contract ever for Lennox Lewis to fight Mike Tyson. That fight got postponed because Mike Tyson bit Lennox on the leg, but you know.
Oh
So,
my God. What were you thinking? Were you there when he bit his leg?
so we're on the side of the stage at the press conference to announce the fight, and Mike Tyson jumps off the dais, runs over to where Lennox is, and they go rolling around the floor because he tackles them. And obviously, this press conference is over because it's turned into chaos. So we go up to Lennox's room, and he rolls his pant leg up, and there's blood coming down the leg, and he says, "Oh my God," in a British accent, "the geezer bit me."
The geezer bit me. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Oh my gosh. So Bill Walsh has his coaching tree, and so does Mike Shanahan. But Leigh, you have your own agent tree. You've got Jeff, David. How proud of you of this legacy?
I think that to the extent that they modeled our same role modeling concept that Mike Sullivan and Steve Baker and David Dunn and Joby Branion and Ryan Tollner and Bruce Tollner and Chase Callahan and Nima Sarabi and Chris Cabot. Hopefully, they're all out in the world making a positive difference. Now, the problem in agency is that trying to get an agent to say something nice about someone else in the field is very difficult. Doctors can admit the talent of another doctor, and in journalism, writers can write a blurb on the back of another book. But if you just negotiated a contract for $1 trillion, there would be agents saying, "I could have got 2 trillion. He only got it because the player was so good." Blah blah. It's structurally flawed. So I've tried to be a mentor, but sometimes it's challenging.
When you are looking at new athletes, what are you looking for, and how do you find out about them? Do you have scouts out there looking, or how does that work?
Well, first of all, if you have good relationships with franchises, they will tell you who they're looking at and who the good players are. So, what I look for is the quality character. And I look for someone that understands the importance of being a role model. I look at someone with a good work ethic who's going to tirelessly work off the field to stay in shape, to keep training, to master a playbook. And the most important quality is the one that we mentioned a few minutes ago, which is what that athlete does in adversity. Life will inevitably push you back and break you, but can you be resilient? Can you perform in the moment? Can you make a real elevation in your level of talent in key reverses?
You had obstacles in your life and you've had some challenges. How has that shaped who you've become now, and how you relate to your clients in different ways when they're going through different crises? Do you deal with a lot of crisis management?
Well, hopefully, if you've done the right screening and if you mentor the players to explain that they're under a microscope, and if they don't want to be gracious in signing autographs, if they don't want to control driving and alcohol, if they don't understand the fundamentals of respect for the opposite sex, then it's going to be nonstop trouble. So we not only screen for it, but we also try to mentor the athletes so that they have a designated driver, so they have people around them. In my own life, I struggled with alcohol some years ago, and I had to break denial and join a 12-step program with a unique fellowship. And next month, everything going well, I'll be 15 years continuously sober. So I've been public about it. Thank you. I've been public about it in the hope that people still struggling out there understand that there's a framework, if they'll accept it, that can lead them back to a fulfilling life. And I try to inspire, if I can, people that are still struggling.
Have you had to deal with that with athletes? With that type, with alcohol and drugs? Is that something that's...
By and large, their usage rates are lower. It's alcohol is I often joke that pro football is a Disneyland of drinking, but I think that we try to work with them and counsel them. And again, it's important to understand that mental health is health. And instead of having a stigma around it, it's a set of issues to work through.
How much of an issue is the NIL with these new brand of players? I mean, are you negotiating that as well with the NIL, or can you talk a little bit about that?
It's a case of totally unintended consequences, because what was meant as a way to get a few more dollars into the bank book of players that come from disadvantaged households has turned into free agency for high school players going to college, where 4 conferences have put together among their alums what are called collectives. And this is now bidding money for recruiting. So player comes out, for example, best college quarterback commits to LSU. And then a businessman in Michigan decides they want him for Michigan, and he offers him $14 million. And he decommits and transfers to Michigan. So the problem with it is that these 4 conferences are going to elevate above everybody else and sign all the good players. And they have a second bite at the apple, Christina, with what's called the transfer portal. And that's the ability of an athlete already at a university to switch and go to another school. And big money's part of that too. So it creates a climate where 15-year-old high school quarterbacks are marketing themselves and branding themselves. So the whole concept of amateurism, not that it was ever pure, but it's gone out the window. And now it's about money. And those 4 conferences are going to pull away from every other conference. And it'll be the haves and the have-nots. And eventually they'll get rid of the NCAA and negotiate their own television contracts and their own rules. So there are no real regulations. There are very few standards. It's the Wild Wild West.
So you're not a big fan of this NIL money, I'm assuming. I mean, I think it's going to make a huge impact, and I don't know if it's positive for everyone. I mean, that's such a young age for these kids to have these exorbitant sums of money at their disposal. And, quite frankly, if you think about it, it might be just too overwhelming and too much. I mean, are these kids getting agents, or how's that? What's the youngest athlete that you have signed?
I'm still mostly in the college bracket, but the answer is yes. They're getting they're able to get a marketing director. They cannot have a sports agent, but the marketing director does
same thing, right?
Exactly the same thing, and many of them also represent the professional athletes. So if they do a good job early on, then they'll continue to represent an athlete all the way from high school through the pros. So it professionalizes everything. Am I in favor of athletes getting more money and a better cut? Yes. Is this is a pyramid which in general only heavily compensates those athletes at the top of the game.
What brands do you see having a huge impact with your athletes right now? Are you seeing the same thing with the Converse and the Nike, or what other things do you negotiate? Do you negotiate all of that? Like, for example, for Patrick, do you do on all his stuff off the field as well?
Well, Chris Cabot, his other agent, negotiates those deals, but the reality is that that the first key is to brand an athlete, to create a website and presence on multiple platforms of content supply. So you're looking for a robust Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and LinkedIn and all of those platforms. And then the production of content which enhances those platforms. So it's little bits of content, little videos, little discussions. And then once it gets high enough, it creates a revenue stream where advertisers will come there. And then we look at product categories, which are automotive's a product category, clothing and apparel, shoes, breakfast cereals, soft drinks, waters, financial services, internet concepts. And an athlete can really only have one deal in each of those areas. Exclusivity.
Got it. We are going to take another commercial break. I'm Christina Flach. I'm chatting with Leigh Steinberg today, and we will be back in a minute. And I'm too busy.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Hello, I'm Christina Flach. Welcome back to I'm Too Busy. We're chatting with Leigh Steinberg about all things sports. So what are your thoughts, Leigh, on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with Oklahoma City Thunder? He dropped his agent, is getting ready to negotiate a Supermax contract. How big of a deal is that? And how is this going to impact the sports representation business?
He's perfectly entitled to do that. The reality is that what an agent does for a player is more than negotiating the contract. He in an ideal situation, you're preparing a player for second career. You're helping a player understand the scouting system and the best way to prepare and maximize getting drafted as high as possible. You're mentoring a player in the early years of career. You're a resource for a player when he gets injured and the concept of a second opinion. You're working on charity and community with them. And then it all depends. Contracts have structure, and it takes a while to understand what the particular items are that need to be involved. So it's always been true that the central value of a player's contract is the player himself, but ensuring that their rights are protected, making sure that the language is sufficient to deal with future contingencies is always important. So there have always been athletes. Lamar Jackson would be an example, there have always been athletes who have done this, but I don't see it really catching on. Agents evolve because of the needs of players, not vice versa.
Right. What progress have you seen in concussion research and brain health, and what still needs to be addressed, do you think?
So I had a crisis of conscience back in the late 80s. I was representing half the starting quarterbacks that kept getting hit in the head, and we go to doctors and ask, how many is too many? What should contemplate retirement? They had no answers. So in 1994, I had the first concussion conference where Troy Aikman and Steve Young and Warren Moon and Drew Bledsoe and Rob Johnson all came and listened to neurologists talk about the dangers. We kept having them, and by 2006, the doctors told us that 3 or more was the magic number, and at that point, there was an exponentially higher risk of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, premature senility, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and depression. So I called it a ticking time bomb and an undiagnosed health epidemic. Since then, we've continued to hold these conferences at my Super Bowl party each year, and we've done 10 of them at the Super Bowl party. We just have one in New Orleans. So the good news is that there are now a couple ways, modalities and protocols that I think can cure a brain. And so the premise always was that once it got traumatic brain injury, that was it, that it just was a slippery slope. But now through the theory of neuroplasticity, which is a rewiring of neurons in the brain, there's one method called TMS or rTMS. There's another called neurofeedback, and we've seen promising results in rewiring. I just set up a concussion foundation in my name to raise money for more research and to put aside money for at-risk or underserved communities so they can get brain health treatment also. So the goal is to try to make a difference. The concussion protocol that the NFL uses is helpful. They have people in the sidelines in the press box and down on the sidelines spotting impaired players. They put them through a protocol. That's helpful. Better rules against using the head and blocking and tackling are also helpful. I think we have to be conscious of how young athlete is when they first play tackle football, because the adolescent brain is still in development and needs more, and it takes for a pro athlete a week to recover potentially, and it takes the younger athlete 3 weeks. There are also there are programs that have eliminated hitting during preseason and during practices that they're using in the Ivy League, for example, and they can drop the concussion rate by 30-40%.
That's remarkable. Can you tell me a little bit about saving the San Francisco Giants and what earning the Leigh Steinberg Day meant to you?
I've always thought it was wrong for professional franchises to claim to be civic treasures. So they're your Los Angeles Dodgers, they're your Los Angeles Rams, and ask for fans to come when they lose or when they win and to give support actually for a private business and then leave the area. I mean, it goes all the way back to the Dodgers moving from Brooklyn. We'd have been happy in Southern California with an expansion team. So I don't want to break the hearts of young fans. And Mayor Jordan of San Francisco asked me if I could help lead an effort to save the Giants. They had already signed a sales agreement with a group in Tampa Bay. So we had to turn that around, find a group of new buyers, convince the National League to disapprove the move, and ultimately found all that. And I got sued for $3 billion by that owners group. Talk
Oh
about
my
blood,
gosh.
talk about blood out of a turnip. But at any rate, we were able to do that, and then did the same thing again with the Oakland A's in 1994, where I helped Mayor Elihu Harris. Unfortunately, Oakland's lost all of its teams now.
It's so sad. That town it's just so sad how they've all left.
It takes a leader. It took Frank Jordan. It took a leader or Elihu Harris. It takes a mayor, head of board of supervisors to lead the effort, but they just sat there and acquiesced to losing things that gave them their identity.
Definitely. In the community, it really greatly affected it. How do you view the current landscape of athlete activism and social justice
I,
initiatives?
I think it's important for athletes to not see themselves as disconnected from the rest of the community. I think that advocacy teaches important leadership skills. I'm all for it. Where I have problems is when the stadium is used, because if you use a stadium and protest to fight racism, then the next group that'll occur will be anti-abortion activists who say that abortion is murder, and then you have them demonstrating, and then someone else and someone else. Part of the premise of pro sports is it gets people together from different racial, age, political perspectives, and everybody tosses that all aside because we have uh, the collective ability to follow the sport, and we're all fans. And I would hate to see that broken, because if we make a stadium or arena too much like what goes on a news channel, people are not going to be excited. They leave that world behind to come and root for sports.
Right. What motivates you to keep you pushing boundaries in sports representation?
Um, uh, the feeling like we can constantly progress, and so take an issue like the environment. I created a Sporting Green Alliance, which took sustainable technology in wind, solar, recycling, resurfacing, and water to stadium, arena, and practice fields, drop carbon emissions and energy costs, and transform those venues into teaching platforms where a fan can see a waterless urinal, see a solar panel, and think about how to make a difference in their own home or business. So it's how can we keep progressing on fundamental issues? How can we push back on racism, push back on domestic violence or bullying, or solve any of these problems? And we can do it through athlete role modeling.
Hmm. What lessons about resilience have you learned that you share with your clients and
Stay
that
in
they've shared with you?
Stay in process. Instead of thinking about the ultimate result, stay in the motion of preparation, practice, that will get you there. Instead of obsessing about, am I going to win this case? Am I going to make this sale? Am I going to stop thinking about that and keep taking the steps that will augur well for success?
Who is the person on the out of the sports sector that you're at liberty to discuss that would be most surprising, if you're not at liberty to say what industry are they in?
Well, I grew up my grandfather ran Hillcrest Country Club, and he played gin rummy every day in the 50s with Jack Benny and George Burns and George Jessel and the rest of it. And so I sat on his lap, and that was my environment. And because it was the center of the entertainment industry, um, I have a picture of me on Marilyn Monroe's lap. I have
Oh my God, that's iconic.
that we cut a record. George Groucho Marx and his granddaughter Melinda to Annie, get your gun. Anything you can do, I can do better. Um, so I've pretty much always been surrounded by people that do interesting things.
I love that. Did you think when you were growing up that you were going to get into entertainment or law or entertainment law? I mean, like, what did you think when you went to Cal and you were studying? What did you think you were going to, what law did you think you were going to do?
I thought I would do public interest law, that I would try to be someone who would fight for positive change. And I thought, well, maybe I'll get some experience and I could do it with the Alameda County District Attorney, where I could
Mhm.
do cases. But it was goodbye, District Attorney, hello, NFL.
What advice would you give to young athletes entering the field today?
Um, Again, to do an internal inventory so they understand what's most important to them. So, how important is short term economic gain, long term economic security, spiritual values, family, geographical location? Um, how important is being on a winning team, being a starter, the quality of coaching, the system? To prioritize before they ever enter the sport what is fulfilling to them, not what the world thinks, but what their own values really are. And um, so that would be important.
What do you do when your day isn't flowing?
When my day isn't,
When it's not flowing, it's just like bumpy. What do you do?
take a break. In other words, reset and um, and try to change the environment quickly. Don't sit in the same seat. Go for a walk.
Yeah.
And or get some perspective and proportionality. When I was at my darkest in fighting alcohol, I finally got an epiphany that said, you know, I'm not a starving peasant in Darfur. I don't have the last name Steinberg in Nazi Germany in the 30s. I don't have cancer, so it's. I go into the office every day expecting that, notwithstanding our best efforts at preparation, something will go awry. Some third party, something will happen that frustrates us. And it's just part of life. If you're prepared for that, then the reverses won't seem so dramatic or upsetting.
We're going to take one more commercial break. We are chatting with Leigh Steinberg. I am Christina Flach, and I'm too busy. I'll be right back.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Mike Zorich, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorich, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorich has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Hi, welcome back to I'm Too Busy. I'm Christina Flach, and we are chatting with Leigh Steinberg. Leigh, what's been the greatest honor of your career?
I've been man of the year for probably about 15 groups, but I'm under no illusion that those are lasting. I think at the end of life, you have the quality of the relationships you had and whether you made a difference in other people's lives. But I think the biggest honor, in a way, was Warren Moon asking me to be his presenter in Canton, Ohio, at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, because he had been a terrific role model, had done all sorts of charitable things, and played all those years, and we were together for so long. So it was almost like having a player, because agents are not presenters. They tend to be family members or coaches or someone like that. Mm-hmm. So that was probably the biggest honor.
That's amazing. Okay, I know this is a hard question because I get asked this as a makeup artist, who's my favorite? And I always say whoever's in my chair. But who's your favorite all-time client? If there is one. I mean, I know they're all special in their way, but there's some probably that you connect more than others.
But the most enduring one is who I just mentioned, Warren Moon, because over 20 years, we essentially grew up together. I mean, we were both so young at the start of it, and he plays for 23 years. And
that's remarkable.
And in all sorts of situations, and we had bonded. And I have there's a player, Rolf Benirschke, who started a charitable program called Kicks for Critters in San Diego, which was a genesis for all the later programs. But I've got 12 players in the Hall of Fame, and you think about the relationship with the Troy Aikman or a Steve Young, or currently with Patrick. I mean, they're all amazing.
That's such a blessing. So back to your personal life, what do you do do you have a special diet? Do you have a certain workout? What are you doing to take care of yourself? Because wellness and self-care is so incredibly important when you're in the position that you're in, because if you're not feeling good and healthy, you can't take care of all these people. So what do you do that makes you feel best?
I work out with a personal trainer 3 times a week. I have an Apple Watch, and I'm very competitive on steps. So I'm trying to get 15,000 a day. I've discovered a whole new set of modalities that are anti-inflammatory, which I've done hyperbaric oxygen and a process called Bimini, which is hoses in a tub that oxygenate the water, comes in. There's a process called Nanovi. Cells. I had 30 million implanted in each temple and dropped my glasses so I don't have to wear them anymore.
Wow.
Uh, so I love the ocean. I love the water. I love the beach. I love travel. I love reading. I have a book club on Facebook. It's got almost 3,000 people that are there. I love movies, television, music. So it and here's the thing, I'm in the moment. So let's say it's the weekend. I've got people that cover the athletes. I turn my phone off, and
That's
and
surprising.
I am in the moment. It's not, things are covered, but the point is that with this modern world, with so many distractions, with the computer and the internet and cell phone and everything, you simply need a break where you can focus on that moment, whether I'm with my family or girlfriend or whoever it is. I need to be totally present for them, and that's one of the ways I have of getting away.
Do you have a special diet that you're loving right now, or do you change? Because I know I'm constantly doing the green juice, or now I'm doing protein first thing in the morning. What is your special thing that you're doing?
So I sort of do intermittent fasting,
Mm-hmm.
and um, it, it. So for years I've been on primarily a vegetable salad protein diet, and now I've got a group of people trying to switch me to carnivore and keto, which they say. But it's sort of counterintuitive. We've been told all these years, low
I
fat,
know
low.
it's so crazy. Right.
Now, now all of a sudden they're saying, no, that's wrong, fat. Genghis Khan in his day, his soldiers only ate meat and no vegetables. So it's all confusing.
I don't know. I think it's balance, I think it's both. I do think you need the protein, but I think the vegetables are super important as well. And, having balance in life. Where's your happy place?
It's right now I'm looking out of my office and I can see the sun just starting to go down, and it's water. It's I could live in a
Me too.
hovel as long as I can see the ocean, which I can here in Newport Beach. I could in my Berkeley house could see the thing. So the happy place is looking out at the water and seeing the sun reflect on it and then watching the sunset.
I love that. What's your vision for the future of Steinberg Sports and Entertainment, and what legacy do you hope to leave?
The legacy is just the caring, but the future is there's all sorts of new interesting projects. There are new ways to enjoy sports that bring fans closer. There are new technologies. There are um, uh, new. I got talked to a group of jockeys the other day who want to set up a jockey league. Um, there are niches and ways to do new modalities, and there's always more we can do charitably. And the legacy is just that we acted and made a positive difference.
What's your favorite quote or motto?
Um, I like that Teddy Roosevelt quote about the man in the arena. I can't do the whole thing, but fundamentally it says that it's not the critic who counts or someone who can't do the deeds. It's someone in the arena who's fighting as hard as they can, striving, and whether it's success or failure, knows the meaning of involvement.
What question have I not asked you today that you want to share?
We didn't ask me about our Agent Academy, and we do that to bring along the next generation of professionals with values and ethics that we've taught how to negotiate, how to sell or recruit, how to do different things. We have the next one coming up March 7th and 8th here in Newport Beach. And it's my way of trying to create another generation of sports professionals with values and ethics that can understand how to use sports to make a difference.
I love that so much. Leigh, I cannot thank you enough for being on my show today. It has been such an honor. I've been a fan of yours forever. You and I are friends on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I just enjoy you and you inspire me. So thank you for all you do for the world. And I look forward to seeing you again. And I'm Christina Flach, and I'm too busy. I'd like to thank everyone that helped with questions for this. Jim Peterson, Vern Glenn, Bill McDonald, Steve Campagno, all of you, thank you so much. And both my assistants for helping. I'm very grateful. And I'm Christina Flach. I'll see you next week. And I'm too busy.
This has been I'm Too Busy with host Christina Flach. Tune in each week as Christina approaches the concept of success holistically, recognizing that achievement is not solely measured by financial triumphs, but also by maintaining a healthy work-life balance and focusing on self-care. Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.